You can now purchase your own sample of Martian dirt. Well, sort of. Simulation of dirt on the red planet. Researchers are trying to figure out how to approach agriculture and construction on Mars. To do that, they need to test their methods. So they created the dirt based on samples taken by the Mars Curiosity rover. So the dirt's not cheap, as you can imagine. It goes for $20 a kilogram, and the Kennedy Space Center has already ordered half ton of it.
Thanks for being here with us. Edie Lambert and Golston Dart here now with what's coming up at 5.
All right, guys, thanks so much. Well, we continue to follow the latest on that investigation on a murder in Modesto.
A deadly shooting. A woman dies as her friends tried to rush her to the hospital. The search for clues for who's responsible. New information on the murder of a doctor in Lodi. Police revealing it may have been a case of revenge after a failed medical procedure. And 2 new bills to increase transparency of law enforcement agencies across the state. How community organizations and police are responding.
Where the news comes first. This is KCRA 3 News at 5.
And tonight at 5, there's some growing questions after a woman was shot and killed in Modesto. Her friends desperately tried to rush her to the hospital, but she didn't survive.
That attack was on Kerr Avenue. This is where investigators say she was shot, and her life ended at a McDonald's parking lot on 9th Street. KCRA 3's Melinda Meza is there right now to explain how the woman ended up there and how the community is now reacting to this murder. Melinda?
Well, Edie, it's when her friends were trying to rush her to the hospital that a 911 dispatcher told them to bring her to a public place so that way the ambulance could find her and she could get medical help sooner.
Modesto officers are looking for answers in a shooting that began here on Kerr Avenue in Modesto.
It's getting real bad.
They received a call around 4:30 this morning.
It's from witnesses who said they had heard a gunshot.
Police say a 34-year-old woman was shot in the street, but then made it home. Her roommates.
They loaded her into a car and decided to try and transport her to the hospital.
When a dispatcher told them to pull over at a public place so an ambulance could get to her.
Medical services arrived shortly thereafter.
They pulled over at this McDonald's.
When they arrived there, they did locate a female who had suffered a gunshot wound.
On 9th Street.
Started trying to treat her, but they were unable to save her.
That's when officers turned their focus on the scene on Kerr Avenue.
But at this point, I don't have any suspect information.
Spending the day looking for clues and looking for witnesses.
It's really shocking.
This man lives in the area with his teenage son. He says he hopes more law enforcement will patrol the area, and he says he hopes for less crime.
Where I live at, it's getting real bad, and there's a lot of violence. It only takes one bullet to kill somebody.
Now, this is Modesto's 12th homicide this year. Now, police do have the identity of this woman who was killed this morning, but they are not releasing her name until all family has been notified. And that's the latest here in Modesto. I'm Melinda Meza, KCRA 3 News.
All right, Melinda, thank you.
We now have some breaking news. This is in Sacramento, and you can see that little fire there burning along the American River Parkway. This is burning north of the river near Discovery Park. This fire hasn't been spreading very fast, but you can see there is a lot of brush right there in that area. Almost looks like a grill down there or something, maybe part of an encampment. We do know firefighters are on the scene. Again, this is small. We're not overly concerned, but we're keeping an eye on it. And if there are any big developments, we'll bring you an update. We are learning more about the murder of Lodi Dr. Tom Schock, who was shot and killed on the front steps of his home. The arrest warrant was released today, and it reveals the wife of one of the suspects in custody, Robert Lee, was a patient of the podiatrist. Police say a page from the California Medical Board was found alongside Schock's body. The document referenced patient B.L., believed to be Bonnie Lee, who was married to Robert Lee. She saw Dr. Schock for an ingrown toenail in 2014 and wound up losing part of her foot after that procedure. 2 years later, she died from an infection. Lee and 3 other men are now in custody on murder and other charges. They're due in court later this month.
Well, just into our newsroom, arrests have been made now in the robbery of a 12-year-old in Elk Grove. Surveillance cameras caught the robbery in action. Here it is. This was Friday afternoon on Swan Way. and you can see the boy was on his bike talking to a teenager. That's when the 3 other teens came up. They all then took part in knocking the boy down to the ground in a violent attack there. They hopped in a car then and took off. Police say they have arrested all 4 suspects. They range in age from 16 to 17, now facing multiple charges. One of them is charged with using a deadly weapon. They've been taken to the Sacramento County Juvenile Hall. Well, dozens of car windows were smashed overnight in a parking lot at Sacramento State University. At least 30 cars had their windows busted out. Thieves then rifled through the glove boxes. This is the second time in less than a month that car windows have been smashed at the campus. An officer on patrol discovered the scene after hearing a car alarm go off. Investigators do not have any suspects in this case yet. They do suspect that some of the damage was done just out of pure malice. Investigators are now reviewing security footage, and they are warning drivers to make sure to not leave any valuables in their car.
Governor Brown signed 2 bills today aimed at helping young people in the criminal justice system. One Senate bill prohibits 14 and 15-year-olds from being tried as adults in criminal court. The bill also addresses severe racial disparities. Data from the California Department of Justice shows that Black youth are 11 times more likely and Latino youth 5 times more likely as white youth to be tried as adults. The governor also signed a Senate bill which extends services and support for those released from prison after wrongful convictions are overturned. This guarantees them access to Medi-Cal, CalFresh, and work training programs to transition back into society. And the governor also signed 2 bills to provide more transparency following the use of force and officer-involved shootings.
Yeah, law enforcement agencies now face new requirements when it comes to releasing body camera footage, as well as releasing investigation records that can currently be kept confidential.
KCRA 3's Vicki Gonzalez is live for us outside the state capitol with a look at how this will shape those departments moving forward. Vicki?
Edie and Galson, both of these laws impact the aftermath of officer-involved shootings as well as officer misconduct investigation. Activists and law enforcement agencies we spoke with see an opportunity for progress. However, there are concerns about how this will apply to each individual case. For the first time, the public will have access to California police records involving use of force, sexual assault, and lying while on duty. A welcome new chapter for Pastor Les Simmons with South Sacramento Christian Center.
They are. They're 2 significant steps that allow for some healing, allow for some accountability, allow for some transparency that is well needed in our state.
There's also a mandate that body camera footage be released within 45 days, while the Sacramento Police Department already commits to an even earlier deadline of 30 days. The Sacramento County Sheriff's is still in the early process of outfitting deputies with body cameras.
So we have just under 2,000 sworn officers within the Sheriff's Department.
Sergeant Sean Hampton believes the new laws are an educational opportunity for the public to better understand what officers face on a regular basis.
I think it will show the communities that we serve a degree of transparency, but also there may be some other things that they may see that may shock them. The violent element within our community that we deal with on a daily basis.
But the department also has concerns opening up law enforcement investigations like never before.
We have to protect people within our community, maybe witnesses, maybe the identity of victims, and in certain cases, the identity of victims that may be involved in heinous crimes.
Governor Brown signing into law an intention to improve the relationship between law enforcement and the communities they have sworn to protect.
I am optimistic. I'm always on the side of how do we build trust, how do we fix a problem, and how do we come together. And this is a we problem. This is something we have to solve.
And the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department is still working with the county to roll out body cameras. Sergeant Hampton says there are sizable infrastructure and funding components to outfit the 7th largest law enforcement agency in the country. Live at the state capitol, Vicki Gonzalez, KCRA 3 News.
All right, Vicki, thanks. Well, Governor Brown also signed the country's toughest net neutrality protections into law.
This law blocks internet service providers from slowing specific types of content. The goal is to make it an even playing field for all businesses and consumers. But the Justice Department was ready. They filed a lawsuit within an hour of the governor's signature on that bill. The DOJ says California's approach is unlawful and anti-consumer with too many regulations on the internet. To take a closer look at this bill and the other bills the governor has signed into law and those he's vetoed, you can open the KCRA3 app, and you can download that for free.
Well, turning right now to the KCRA3 weather, and how about a live look outside right now at the conditions in Sacramento and Stockton from our Skycam network. We see clouds in the area. We've even been hearing about a little bit of rain talk this week, and just it feels like October.
And we're actually seeing some green on Doppler, just not right over us.
And not really coming our way either. So yeah, we have a lot of clouds in our area, but we are dry. And if you have any plans the next few hours, no worries about any rain. There is rain off the coast, and usually if you see rain here, you think it's just a matter of time. Well, you could say it is a matter of time, but it's a long time, because this rain is almost just going to stop once it gets to the east of 101. So no rain from this area. As a matter of fact, I can show you the way Futurecast shows tomorrow morning. Well, it's the same thing. There's rain on the coast, but the valley, the foothills, Sierra are still dry. So that's tomorrow morning. But eventually we'll get some rain. I'll show you that coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Right, sounds good, Mark. Thanks. We'll see you soon. First, though, President Trump hailing his new trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. His administration closing this deal with Canada just before a midnight deadline. If this is approved, the new U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement will govern nearly $1.2 trillion in trade, replacing the 24-year-old North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. Among the changes here, Canada would open up its dairy markets to American farmers, and other products like wheat, poultry, and eggs could also be sent north of the border.
It's an agreement that removes uncertainty for our manufacturers and investors and improves labor rights for all North Americans.
The U.S. market accounts for 75% of Canadian exports, so the deal obviously critical for Canada. Also impacted by this, the auto industry. The president says the deal will require 75% of new vehicles to be North American made and establish wage floors for auto workers in Mexico, which could actually boost U.S. auto employment. The president plans to sign the deal by December and then send it to Congress for approval.
And defending his Supreme Court nominee, President Trump says he supports a quick FBI investigation into Brett Kavanaugh, and he also added he believes that Kavanaugh has been treated horribly.
I'd like it to go quickly, and the reason I'd like it to go quickly, very simple. It's so simple, because it's unfair to him at this point. What his wife is going through, what his beautiful children are going through, is not describable.
Investigators have until Friday to look into sexual misconduct claims against Kavanaugh. Lisa Gonzalez is here now with some of the political experts who are weighing in. Lisa?
Well, Edie, President Trump says he's not putting a limit on the scope of the investigation, but Democrats say they want to see what instructions the White House gave the FBI about who to interview and what to focus on.
I think the FBI should interview anybody that they want within reason.
3 days after President Trump ordered the FBI to investigate sexual misconduct claims against Brett Kavanaugh, the president says his Supreme Court nominee is a good man who's been treated horribly.
We would know about this over the last 20 years, 30 years of his career. You know, what happened? They're going back to high school?
Federal investigators have been given until Friday to look into allegations against Kavanaugh, which include Christine Blasey Ford's claim that Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her during their high school years, and Deborah Ramirez's claim that Kavanaugh exposed himself to her at a party at Yale. Under oath, Kavanaugh denied those allegations and said he never blacked out from alcohol. But a former college classmate tells a different story. In a statement, Chad Ludington says he often drank with Kavanaugh at Yale and says, quote, on many occasions, I heard Brett slur his words and saw him staggering from alcohol consumption, not all of which was beer. When Brett got drunk, he was often belligerent and aggressive, end of quote.
This has moved beyond what Brett Kavanaugh did or didn't do during high school or even during college. Now the issue is whether he lied to the committee.
Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that the Senate will vote on the Kavanaugh nomination this week. President Trump says he hopes Kavanaugh will get approved, but also says if the FBI finds something, he'll take that into consideration and potentially pull the nomination. Golston, Edie.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. A year after the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history, the victims are honored. We'll show you the ceremony now to remember those who were lost and what President Trump is saying about the weapon used in that mass shooting.
Plus, the highest honor in the military, the heroic actions one U.S. Army Staff Sergeant took to save the lives of his fellow soldiers.
It has been 3 days since that powerful earthquake and tsunami rocked Indonesia. And today, rescue crews miraculously pulled a 38-year-old man out alive from beneath a collapsed building. Also, a woman in her 20s was found alive, pulled out from underneath the rubble of a building. But they are two of the lucky ones. The deadly forces have killed more than 840 people, and that number is expected to rise. Meantime, tens of thousands of people are displaced, many with no home to go back to. Mass graves are being dug for hundreds of bodies in order to prevent disease. Relief efforts are starting to pour in, but it is not fast enough. Fresh water and food are running short, and thousands of people have been heading to crowded airports, trying to escape the areas unharmed by the disaster. Japan's government grappling with how to dispose of tainted water left over from cooling the meltdown-hit reactors at Fukushima Daiichi plant. The radioactive particles are still in that water even after it's processed. The committee has considered discharging the tainted water into the sea, but since radioactive materials are still in more than 80% of about 900,000 tons of water, this is over the permissible standards. That tsunami hit Fukushima back in 2011, triggering a triple meltdown.
Well, today marks the one-year anniversary of the deadliest single-day mass shooting in modern U.S. history. 58 people died in the Las Vegas massacre. And this morning, doves were released at a sunrise remembrance ceremony in honor of the victims. There were also 58 seconds of silence, 1 second for each of the victims who lost their lives. A lone gunman who for days stockpiled several weapons opened fire from his Mandalay Bay hotel suite onto a crowd of 22,000 people at a concert below. Today, the survivors of the shooting and loved ones of the victims all gathered together to remember the fallen.
We have all changed. We have all been broken. But we can find a way to pick up those pieces and glue it all back together. Yes, the cracks will be seen, but it can be whole again. I know that the sun will rise each day, offering us new hope to take steps knowing our 58 angels are with us.
After a year-long investigation, authorities still don't know what drove the attacker to carry out the massacre. They do believe, though, he acted alone. Well, President Trump remembering the Las Vegas shooting victims today while speaking in the Rose Garden. He said that all of America is grieving for the lives lost and for the families they left behind. The president also went on to say that those rapid fire devices, the bump stocks like those used in the shooting, will soon be ruled out.
In order to terminate bump stocks, we have to go through a procedure. We are now at the final stages of that procedure. In fact, the lawyers were just telling me, and over the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to write it up. But you can't just write it up because rules and regulations in this country are really tough, even for something like that. So we're knocking out bump stocks. I've told the NRA, I've told that bump stocks are gone.
Now, of the 22 semi-automatic rifles found in the shooter's hotel room, 14 were equipped with those bump stocks.
A fire caused part of a two-story home to collapse in Elk Grove this afternoon. That fire broke out at a home on Barrett Way about noon today. The fire burned in the garage, the kitchen, and the second story of the house. Firefighters say the second floor actually collapsed, so did part of the roof. No one was home at the time of the fire, and there are no injuries. Arson investigators are now looking into the cause of this.
Well, lower fares are here for Sacramento Regional Transit riders. The Board of Directors approving recommendations to use funds from cost-cutting measures to pass those savings back to customers. They started today. A basic single ride will go down by 25 cents from $2.75 to $2.50. A discount single ride would go down by 10 cents from $1.35 to $1.25. Monthly rides, by the way, will go down $10 a month to $100, and discounted monthly prices would decrease by $5.
Downtown Sacramento is welcoming a new restaurant. The Yard House just opened in the downtown Commons today. It's a chain restaurant with locations all across the U.S. They have more than 100 beers on draft, and they have about 30 local beers, including Track 7 and Knee Deep. In addition to the drinks, there's a full menu of appetizers and entrees. And today, of course, the first day of October, and we saw folks clearing out leaves, along their properties. That time of year to get on top of it before everything piles up.
Before you know it, we'll be talking about the claw. coming up. And
they'll be deploying that pretty soon, yeah.
Scooping up all those leaves there, Mark.
Yeah, but it is funny in the valley how we just usually don't lose all the leaves until middle or end of November and even early December in some cases. Right now, Live Copter 3 is up over Sacramento, looking at the Tower Bridge, technically over West Sacramento, looking into Sacramento at the Tower Bridge. Everything looks nice out there. A cloudy afternoon, but nothing in the way of rain right now. We have 79 degrees, a little breeze out of the south at just 5 miles an hour, winds generally light. Currently in Stockton, we have sun and clouds. We have 81 degrees, and here the wind is calm. We also have sun and clouds in Modesto with 82 degrees and a northwesterly wind. Fairfield is a bit more cloudy, but it's a mild 80 degrees, not bad for this first day of October. And in South Lake Tahoe, we had a good amount of sunshine. Now a bit more cloud cover. We have 66 degrees with a wind out of the south at 13. Clouds, but nothing in the way of rain up and down the valley. And yes, there is rain on Doppler, and this looks pretty impressive. But it's interesting to note just how this is moving. This is not one of those cases where you can just look at the system here and expect it to track due east, bringing us that rain eventually. Instead, this weather system is almost doing a pivot along the coast. It's actually going to shift down to the south, and that halts the eastward movement of that rain. So that's why Futurecast shows that at 11 o'clock tonight, that rain that I just showed you on Doppler really hasn't moved very far east. Yes, we have some rain in Lake County, but then as we go through the night and the morning, well, that rain kind of stays along 101, nothing for the valley. That's 7:30 tomorrow morning. What about the rest of the day tomorrow? This is noontime tomorrow. Even that rain along the coast has given up. And then by late tomorrow afternoon, yeah, there might be a scattered shower in the Sierra, but notice how the valley and the foothills have gone the entire day tomorrow without any rain. So when might we see the rain? It's looking more like Wednesday morning, when the pieces of that weather system that are now in Southern California will then start to send a few showers our way. We're not talking about big time rain. We're talking about some scattered showers, likely Wednesday. Leaving tomorrow dry in the Sierra. We'll see a fair amount of cloud cover with highs in the 70s and 75 in Pollock Pines. The foothills will also be dry tomorrow with daytime highs in the mid to upper 70s. The areas that will see some rain would include Lakeport and all the way down into Marin County. San Francisco might even see a shower tomorrow with highs in the 60s. But for the valley, I think it's going to be like today, a mixture of sun and clouds with highs in the upper 70s to near 80. And so if you work outdoors, I think tomorrow is going to be just fine to work outside at the high of 78 in Sacramento and 77 degrees in Roseville. We'll bring in that chance of some showers on Wednesday, but not an all-day rain. Still some lingering clouds Thursday. Beyond that, we clear out. Now, the weekend, we've got sunny with temperatures in the 80s, but the thing we're going to have to keep an eye out for the weekend is the potential for a north wind event. Ooh. We don't like that in October at all. So we'll see how that works out in the next couple of days.
Okay, Mark, thank you.
Well, today, the highest U.S. military decoration was awarded to a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army for his work during Operation Enduring Freedom.
It is quite a story. This Medal of Honor awarded to Ronald J. Schurer II for conspicuous gallantry for actions he took back in 2008. He fought his way up a mountain, excuse me, to help injured Special Forces members and their Afghan counterparts. He actually used his own body to shield them from enemy fire. He was hit once in the head, again in the arm, but he kept working. His actions helped save the lives of all the wounded under his care. He's now 39 years old. He lives in Virginia with his wife and sons, and he works for the Secret Service. Cannot imagine a better person for that job. He's proven doesn't get more courageous than that.
One of America's best. All right, well, up next, setting a world record on the surfboard. Up next, the massive wave one woman caught from Brazil that has earned her not one, but two big awards.
Ahead for us, the president has just authorized the FBI to expand its scope in the Judge Kavanaugh investigation. We'll tell you what they may now look at. Also, we'll take you to ground zero of the unfolding earthquake and tsunami disaster on NBC Nightly News.
And then coming up on the KCRA 3 News at 6, Verizon bringing 5G to Sacramento, and it means more than just faster internet. How it could play a role in the city's plan for autonomous cars, and how much more per month people are paying to get that speedy service.
Well, surfing to new heights today became official. Maya Gabeira of Brazil set a new world record for female surfers.
This is just amazing. She rode this massive 68-foot wave from trough to crest back in January. This is off the coast of Portugal. This earned her the Guinness World Record title for the largest wave surfed unlimited by a female. It also earned her the inaugural Women's Double XL Biggest Wave Award, both announced in a special ceremony today. Very cool. NBC Nightly News is next. See you back here at 6.
See you.